City Council meeting to order, and I ask that you stand, and we'll have the pledge in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the meeting. Members of the public are welcome to speak on any topic tonight, whether it's on tonight's agenda or on any issue that is important to you. Each person that wishes to speak should complete a speaker card and submit it ahead of time to the city clerk. After you've been recognized to speak, please use the microphone at the podium and clearly state your name and address for the record. Please address all your comments to the City Council rather than individual members. Direct all questions to this chair. Speakers will be given up to 3 minutes to speak. And I think, Mr. Piccarello, you wanted to, oh yeah, let's do a roll call first, you're right. So if you do a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Bentley.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Young. Here. Councilmember Ditmore. Here. Councilmember Frampus.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell. Here. Councilmember Volz.
Here.
You made it. Good. We're all here, so great. Thank you. Mr. Piccarello, you're going to introduce a new employee?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'd like to introduce you to Justin Warner. Justin's been with us for just shy of 2 months now. He was hired as a maintenance worker at our park department, born and raised in the Florida area. So here's Justin.
How you doing?
Welcome.
We'll give you a minute to tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Justin Warner. I'm 35, born and raised in Sebastian.
Good.
Joined the military right out of high school, did 10 years. Came back, and I've been welding, building airplanes, and now mowing grass.
All right.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
What service were you in?
I was in the Army.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate your service. All right. Thank you, sir. So now we have our public hearing portion, and so we'll invite Ms. Fisher up to give us item A.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Okay, what I'm going to do is, as we've done before, we're going to present the items that are the same property grouped together. So for this one, it's in your agenda, it's numbered as 5A, B, and C. And the applicant's civil engineer is here in case you have any questions about the particulars. But remember, this is a second reading. So at this point, I turn this over to the attorney.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Therefore, we do follow the quasi-judicial standards, as you are all aware of. But just to go over them real quick, the main thing we want to make sure is that you're considering only the facts that are on the record, either through the packet or through testimony that's provided by our staff, as well as the project's agents and any members of the public that are providing fact-based evidentiary comments. And at this time, it's appropriate for you to disclose if you've made any ex parte communications. Ex parte communications are communications that are made with anybody other than staff. So if you've spoken to either the applicant or any other members of the public that may have spoken to you about this, you should disclose them, and that includes any written or other types of communications as well.
Okay.
And seeing no disclosures, I think I'll turn it back over to Ms. Fisher for her presentation.
Okay. The location of the property is, the address is 195 Coastal Lane. So it's on the east side of I-95, and on that aerial view, we have a yellow line pointing to the word site because that's where Cruising Gold is. Some may know that site, some may not. The entire property is 3.55 acres. And if you can see the shading of sort of a bluish color, by annexing in that property, we're sort of closing in a gap of 2 incorporated area, so in the city limits, and we had a gap of area that's not in the city limits, but then that gap will be gone with this second reading. As always, we send out annexation notices to surrounding property owners. We did not receive any communication from any adjacent property owners. And the proposal, from what we understand, is to continue the automotive services. This site was developed in 2003. Sewer was not available on Coastal Lane at that time. I think we talked about that a little bit. The owner wants to expand the automotive services, and they want to abandon the septic system, go to the City of West Melbourne sewer. And the reason to do annexation, by and large, is urban services. In this case, it's utilities. That's why I have that bullet in blue. And we talked about it being a logical extension of city limits. The last bullet on that slide is to remind you all that we always discuss these proposed annexations with the city attorney, and we rely on him to help us with measuring whether it is conforming with Florida statutes. All right, so that's the annexation. So that's 5A.
So I have one question. Mr. Frampus, did you shed your light on it? And if you want to speak now?
No, I'll talk after.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
then agenda items 5B and C is the future land use and the zoning. It's a rezoning. So the future land use map of the city's comprehensive plan is shown on the left side of that screen, and that's where it would go to the M1, which is that bluish color from what it has in the county. And on the right-hand side of the screen is our zoning map. It's just a sort of an excerpt of that, and that would go to the light industrial. The Planning and Zoning Board, as your local planning advisory board, did conduct its public hearings on November 7th, and they recommended in favor of approval. We look at the surrounding land uses. You can tell that you've got development of different types that's, not obviously single-family residential. And so since there is a variety, and you do have industrial to the north of this property, it is compatible with what you have around it. With the comprehensive plan review, we also look at, besides the surrounding property owners, some of our goals, objectives, and policies. FLU stands for future land use. We look at maximum infrastructure and service impacts, as though this property were going to be completely redeveloped to its highest use. And all that, it was analyzed, and we thought it was satisfactory to move forward. Switching gears to agenda item 5C, the rezoning. The same sort of analysis, but now we're looking at the particular zoning districts. And that's why you have the table that I know you can't read on this screen, but in your staff report, that compares what it is in the county and their requirements versus what it would be in the city. There's some differences, but by and large, the cities has fewer non-industrial uses, whereas the county tends to allow non-industrial uses. So in conclusion, our recommended motions, because again, this is the second reading, is agenda item 5A. If you all could make a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-22, annexing the property into the city. Agenda item 5B, approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-24. And then agenda item 5C, the rezoning, approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-25. And I'll answer any questions you might have, but like I said, the applicant is in the audience.
Thank you. First, I'd mention that this is a public hearing on item 5A. If anybody, member of the public, wants to speak on this topic, this is your chance. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on item 5A. What's the will of the council? Mr. Frampus?
Make a motion, we approve second reading ordinance number 2023-22 as written.
Ms. Adams?
I'll second.
Mr. Frampus has made a motion. Ms. Adams has seconded. All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, before you vote, I need to read the ordinance into
Go ahead.
record. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2023-22, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, annexing by voluntary petition, a parcel of land approximately 3.55 acres located at 195 Coastal Lane, and as more fully described herein, finding that the area being annexed is reasonably compact and contiguous to the city, that the annexation of the property does not create an enclave, and that the annexation of the property otherwise complies with Florida law, amending the corporate boundaries of the city to provide for the incorporation of the real property described described herein, providing for filing of the revised city boundaries with the Department of State, providing for repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. So again, we have Mr. Frampus making a motion, Ms. Adams with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, Mr. Frampus, you had your light on?
Going to make another motion.
Okay, so first item passes 7-0. Second item, B, small-scale comprehensive amendment for 195 Coastal Lane. Mr. Frampus?
See, attorney, got to read it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to read that now or after smoke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2023-24, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use of land located at 195 Coastal Lane and as more fully described herein from Brevard County CC Community Commercial to City of West Melbourne Industrial, providing an effective date.
Again, this is a public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this topic? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on 7B. Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion we approve the second reading of ordinance 2023-24 as written.
Ms. Foltz?
Second.
So Mr. Frampus made a motion. We have a second from Ms. Foltz. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it's 7-0. So for item C, again, this is a public hearing, so we'll give the public a chance to speak on item C. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, give the attorney a chance to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2023-25, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, rezoning a 3.55-acre parcel of land located at 195 Coastal Lane from Brevard County BU General Commercial Retail to City of West Melbourne M1 Light Industrial and Warehousing, providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Frampus.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion we approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-25.
And Ms. Foltz?
Second.
So we have a motion from Mr. Frampus and a second from Ms. Foltz. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that is approved, 7-0. Ms. Fisher?
Thank you. Okay, then the next two items on your agenda are 5D and E, which have to do with 5305 Cattle Drive. And we do have the property owner in the audience, too, if you have any questions. So I'll let the city attorney go through the quasi-judicial.
Thank you. As with the last item, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so please only consider testimony and documents that are on the record. If you have any ex parte communications to discuss, as I described earlier, please do so now.
Seeing none?
Okay. Staff report.
Okay, thank you. The owner is the Harrison Family Trust, and Jack Spira had submitted the application on their behalf. The size of the property is 6.89 acres, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the aerial with that bluish color and two little rectangles that show the property. It has Cattle Drive in between it, so it's not as though the property is really divided up. That's just the way it appears on the property appraisers. The existing use, they have single-family residence, and they're connected to the City of Melbourne water, and they do have some vacant land surrounding it. They're going to continue with that single-family residence, so they would continue to be on City of Melbourne water and septic system. Remember, this property is already in our city limits, so it's not that we're annexing it. They do have the county's Brevard County Residential 1 designation, because when they annexed in 2008, they chose to retain that for homestead exemption purposes, and they are going to go to, in order to get their swimming pool permit, they have to go to a city designation and a city zoning district. So that's what essentially, this case is about. And on the right-hand side of the screen, I do have that note that, again, the Planning and Zoning Board is your local planning agency. They did conduct their public hearing November 7th, and they did recommend in favor of these two cases. So like I said, it was a remnant from 2008, and on the left-hand side, you'll actually see the map that shows that oval with the words RES, the res-1, and on the right-hand side, that would change to LD-res. The surrounding future land use, again, this is another view of that same aerial. You have that Res 1 surrounding it. To the west is the plat property that's in the city of Melbourne. We do our comprehensive plan review, and, there wasn't anything that we need really to point out on that. It is consistent with our comprehensive plan. Part of that is the maximum impacts, and, with that RA zoning and having that LD res, but mostly the controlling factor being that RA zoning, there's not going to be much impact to their neighbors.
Ms. Fisher, Cattle Drive, is that not an actual road? Is that nothing the plats can request the road be put in for? Is that,
It's a driveway.
so it's not an easement?
We can certainly, give you that answer, but from what it looks like to me, it doesn't
Since it
have an
connects
easement on it.
Since it connects to the plat property, I have concern that they could possibly request.
No, it doesn't really connect to it. It connects to Simon Road. So Simon Road, I'll try to use the mouse cursor here to point out Simon Road. See this white
So it
sort of
doesn't
ribbon
go all the
here?
way through- It doesn't go all the way through.
No, it
The
doesn't.
lines in the picture
I know.
make it look like.
Yeah, some of these lines are wrong. I think I've talked to some of you about that the property appraiser property lines are not survey grade. They're approximate, and they're askew. They're not on the property lines. So, if you'd like to, we'd be happy to share
I
a
just wanted to
survey.
make sure it wasn't an easement there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and even if there was an easement, that wouldn't affect the zoning or the future land use.
Unless they put a pole on the easement.
Oh, we're going to make sure of that. We'll make sure they're not putting a pull on the easement. Yeah, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. That has nothing to do with zoning. Okay, and then the rezoning request, there would be going from, in the county, the agricultural residential to something very similar in the city called residential agricultural. So it's sort of a flip of the letters, and the uses are almost the same. We do the same analysis of what they have in the county versus what they would have in the city in terms of uses and dimensions, and it is consistent. So the recommended motions, again, this is a second reading of both items. So for agenda item 5D, if you all would make the motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-28, and agenda item 5E, approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-29, and if we could have the city attorney read the titles, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2023-28, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use on parcels of land totaling 6.89 acres located at 5305 Cattle Drive, and as more fully described herein, from Brevard County Residential 1 to City of West Melbourne Low-Density Residential, providing an effective date.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this topic? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Make a motion we approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-28 as written.
Ms. Young?
Second.
So we have a motion from Mr. Frampus and a second from Ms. Young. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes 7-0. So item E, your attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 23-29, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, rezoning parcels of land totaling 6.89 acres located at 5305 Cattle Drive from Brevard County Agricultural Residential to City of West Melbourne Residential Agricultural, providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. This is, once again, is a public hearing. Anybody from the public want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Mrs. Young.
I'll make the motion, please, to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2023-29, rezoning 6.89 acres from Brevard County Agricultural Residential to City of West Melbourne Residential Agricultural, with the condition that the small-scale comprehensive plan map amendment is approved.
Thank you. So, Mr. Frampus?
Second.
So we have a motion from Ms. Young, a second from Mr. Frampus. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item F. Ms. Fisher?
Okay, agenda item F is an item that we had already announced and postponed to this meeting. It was not ready to continue to this meeting with a public hearing, so we have to make the formal notice and ask for you all for a motion to postpone this to December 19th. I will say as an update, the city attorney and myself and the applicant's attorney met today to talk about the revisions to be made to that development agreement. So if we could have a motion from you all to postpone to December 19th, please.
So do you want a couple of comments? I have some speaker cards on this item 5F, and I didn't know if you guys wanted to speak now or if you wanted to wait until the public forum, because some of you put in public forum on here. So Ms. Jamnia, did you want to speak now on this topic? Come on up.
I think this information is very important and everybody needs to know about it before making any decision.
Yeah, we'll need you to give your name and address for the record.
Oops, sorry. My name is Patty Jamnia, and I'm a resident in the Falls at Sheridan. The study that you see here, the references in other words, are this truck parking study that the state has done in 2020. And part of this study result, the document was published, was shared and presented with the Plan and Zoning last month. FDOT has made the truck study results available to local governments to help them make the development decision based on a statewide and uniform factors. Based on the FDOT, in this in-depth research and the published documents in March of 2020, there is no location in Brevard County that is a critical area and in need of the development of truck parking. It is misleading for the Madison Holdings to claim that they are providing much needed truck parking because the state research document does not support this claim. If you look at the map, ES3, you see that along the I-95, FDOT has not identified any location in counties between St. Lucie and St. John, which includes Brevard County, as location in need of new truck parking locations. Another important factor in deciding on the location of the truck parking is the distance to the adjacent properties. As you see in table 12, the distance of less than 650 feet to a residential area has very low suitability for truck parking location. We also found another document about the school bus idling restrictions at schools in the state of Florida. It prohibits unnecessary idling of school buses while they are in the vicinity of the students. We call the Brevard County Transportation Department for the school system, and they follow the state rule as required. So all in all, the truck parking allows the drivers to stay in their trucks with their diesel engines idling for air conditioning. And if they have a refrigerator trailer, they have to keep their diesel engine idle for the minimum of 10 hours during the time that they have to be off the road. So all we are asking here is to prohibit truck idling and refrigerator trailers from being operated at 9075 Ellis Road due to the air quality impact and the resulting health issues from hours of diesel engine use by both of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Griffin, want to speak now?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I ask just a quick question?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
The last speaker, you said, you used the plural, we. Who, I guess I must have missed who we are.
Mr. Bob Griffin and I have been working on this.
Thank you.
It's a lot of people in the Falls of Sheridan that have been contributing to researching all this so that we can have a reasonable opposition to the truck parking part, the 24-hour operation. That's the problem. We have no problem with the 24-hour access. It's a 24-hour operation. That means that, okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just want to get on the record who the we were. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Mr. Griffin, before we start, Ms. Adams, did you want to make a comment?
No.
You have your light on? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Griffin.
Can I hand these out?
Sure. The clerk will do that for you if you give them to the clerk.
We'd like to wait 30 seconds, or because I'm going to talk to the handout. It's all graphics. There's no real print.
I won't turn the time on till he hands them out. Don't
Thank
not to
you.
worry.
And we're taking advantage of every 3 minutes we can. That's why we're here tonight, because we know we're going to be back in 2 weeks. We'll probably have more information then. Okay, so in June of 2022, I came and presented to the City Council the problem we were having at that time with trucks and refrigerated trailers, and asked the question then, what can be done so that we do not have to listen to the trailers at night? What should our expectation of quiet time be? It's impossible to deal with the diesel fumes. Okay, next page. The next page is the proposed layout, and they're going to divvy up the property. On the right-hand side, they've now told us, they didn't tell us until the Board of Adjustment meeting, 90 semi-trailer trucks are going to be parked and packed into that 4.5-acre spot. There's going to be a 600-foot-long building on the bottom. There's going to be parking for his equipment on the left-hand side. The key problem is he wants 24-hour access. We're going to be right back to where we were last year. Okay, next. So I did a quick calculation. If indeed, let's just say 90 trucks showed up with 90 refrigerated trailers, well, let's just go to every week, 17,000 gallons of diesel fuel gets burned, okay? The number of CO2 pounds is 388,000 pounds, okay? And then on the other side is, diesel particulate matter. Again, when you're talking about this many gallons of diesel fuel, now we have 36 pounds of diesel particulate matter every week. The nitrous oxide levels are elevated because they're idling, and their emission systems don't work when they idle. So that's another 466 pounds. The challenge for, and then I attached one other thing that shows the inefficiency of the emission systems, and on the left-hand side it says urban. You see the big black, that's non-compliant. As you move to the right, you'll see the truck on the freeway, it's compliant. We're going to be dealing with trucks that are not compliant because the emission systems don't work. Okay, so this is going to be in our backyard. And we're trying to figure out, how do we get traction with, this is not a good thing from a health standpoint. Finally, the last page is just my presentation from last year saying, how can the city help us? Because it was a nightmare, and we only had 12 trucks last year, 12 refrigerated trailers. They ran all night long and on the weekends. I think that's the frustrating part. They ran on the weekends, so you're sitting outside and all you're hearing and smelling is the diesel fumes. They have not divulged what their business plan is. We don't know if they're going to run out spaces daily, weekly, monthly, or anything. They claim that there was going to be people that were be gone for 3 or 4 weeks and then come back for a week. That's not the use model we experienced. So we have no idea what's going to happen back there. That's another question for you to ask.
I need you to finish up.
What is the use model? What is the business plan?
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Bill Stewart? And again, your name and address for the record. Thank you.
All right. We're not going to be talking to that, just some.
We need your name and address for the record.
My name is Bill Stewart. I'm at 837 Potomac Drive in the Falls of Sheridan. And wanted to discuss some of the, something that was, I noticed in the Florida Today that was presented by the newspaper, that the county commission passed a new noise ordinance, 2023-18, that was significant for the county because prior to that, they did not have any DBA values, were not specified for the county properties. The county's allowable DBA noise level for industrial properties are much lower than the city of West Melbourne's currently. I implored the city to revisit the allowable range of the DBAs for various zoned properties, as the city still is in an all available building out the city. There will be no doubt there will be additional issues as time moves forward with the existing DBA values that are currently for the city of West Melbourne. In regards to the industrial property DBA values, I want to illustrate that a higher noise allowance is allowed by the city in comparison to the county. Currently, the county allows 80 DBA in the daytime and 75 at night. And the city of Melbourne offers 65 DBA during the daytime and 60 at night.
Is that Melbourne or West Melbourne?
That's Melbourne. And then the city of West Melbourne is 80 DBA in the daytime and 70 at night, or 75 at night. So a considerable difference in the city of West Melbourne or city of Melbourne to West Melbourne as well as the county. All right. A total rewrite of the noise ordinance section isn't needed due to the fact that there's very similar wording that can be found within the county's document for noise, as well as the city of Melbourne's documents. It just requires an adjustment of the current DBA levels that can be changed to improve the quality of life of the current residents in the city of West Melbourne. The handouts that provided will illustrate some of the DBA values versus the city of West Melbourne, the county, as well as the city of Melbourne. So I have a couple things in closing. I'd like to appeal to the council to address the deficiencies of the existing noise ordinance to provide an equivalent or better noise protection for the residents of the city of West Melbourne. So if you could please take some time to look at that as you move forward with this property that wants to really make the residents in the Falls of Sheridan have to go through some heartache or hardships. And then one other thing I would like to say, I know Bob had mentioned that asking for it to be moved to the 19th of December. That's pretty close to the holidays, and I fully believe that the reason that it might have been changed now was because we're further away from the holidays. So I would like to request as well that you move the next reading for the Madison Holdings to the second or third week, whenever that council meeting is in January, so we can have better community participation in case there's folks that want to speak but won't be in the city. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Ms. Adam, your tuner's off.
Yeah, I had a different thought.
Okay, so we've heard everything, so now we'll need a motion to postpone it.
Yes.
And so, Mr. Ditmore?
Tabling, postponing, same thing. I'll make a motion to postpone the item F on the agenda for this development agreement for Madison Holdings till December the 19th.
So you're keeping it on the 19th?
19th? That's what they want, the 19th?
That's what their staff recommends.
Yes.
You could change it.
Yeah, we spoke to the applicant today, and that's what we'd agreed upon. I leave it up to the city attorney to advise you of what else is needed if we're going to postpone it to January.
I mean, a motion to postpone it for another date would suffice. It would be a bit unusual, though. I mean, but
We
it's
have a
a
motion.
council decision.
Thank you. We have a motion from Mr. Ditmore. Ms. Foltz?
No, I'd like to see, I'm sorry. I would like to see that changed to January sometime. I'm sorry, this is the first time I'm actually hearing all of this stuff. And I cannot believe that,
Mr. Mayor,
We're
point of
waiting,
order.
we're waiting for a second.
yeah, I did second. Well, I
didn't hear- I didn't
want
hear
to
that
change, I want to change the date to January.
That's
Okay.
not a second, though. You
Okay, no, I'm not going to second.
Ditmore to make any changes to it.
I won't. Would you like to change that, John?
My concern is staff is reached out and they already have this set forth.
That's why I
think-
asked the city attorney if there was anything else we needed to know about you potentially moving it to January. And I'm not clear on whether do you have just one meeting in January, or do they have two? Just one, and do you know what the date is, so they can put that in their motion?
Mr. Ditmore, I believe we can make whatever motion you choose to make.
Yeah,
What's the date?
I'll keep it right now for December.
Thank you. So, Ms. Foltz, your light's still on. Do you want to second his motion?
No.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes, I will second. I will second that motion.
So we have a motion from Mr. Ditmore and a second from Mr. McDowell. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
I think it's 6-1, with Ms. Foltz voting nay. So that item passes. So we're good with that. Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. Well, I've got public, I thought we just, or we'll go with public forum again. I think we just did that. So this is time for public forum. I don't have any speaker cards in the three that are up here. Does anybody from the public wish to speak on any issue that's important to you? Seeing none, we'll close the public forum and we'll move on to the consent agenda. And I would ask the council if there's any item they want to pull from the consent agenda, or if they're good with voting it as a block.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question on
Sure.
item 7B.
B is in Bravo?
Yes.
You want to pull that one?
I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Any reason we went with a car instead of a truck for the building department?
We are in the process of, have a grant application in for two of the F-150, I believe they're called Lightnings, the trucks, F-150s. Electric trucks
Okay.
as well. So this is more of a multi-purpose vehicle.
Is this an electric car?
This is electric, yeah, like a small SUV, electric small SUV.
Well, then I have more questions, so we might as well pull it.
So we want to pull item Bs. So we can vote on the balance. So let's do that, unless anybody else has any opposition. So we'll vote on the consent agenda, and we're voting on items A through F, with the exception of B. Ms. Young?
Yes, I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as written, items A through F, with the exception of item B.
Ms. Foltz?
No, I just wanted to comment on the item that was pulled.
I need to get a second.
I
Mr.
second.
Frampus? Mr. Frampus is second. Okay, go ahead. You wanted to discuss it? She had something she wanted to discuss.
The question that I had on that item is, do we have those plugins where the trucks
On
can?
item B, we'll be discussing that.
Right.
Okay, that's the one that I had a question on.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor
Yeah.
and a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we're back to item B. Ms. Young, your light's on.
Yes, it is. Yes, I did. I had a conversation with our, Mr. Rhodey regarding this item. And I realized that this is from council's suggestion, I believe, earlier this year to try at least one electric vehicle to see how it would work out. So I know that we are also thinking of more electric vehicles as we go, and my question was, do we have the chargers? Do we have the infrastructure to maintain these? Is this vehicle going to be driven as many miles as the other vehicles, where we're going to compare what we would have paid in fuel versus what we're going to pay for the kilowatt hourly charging plus the $2,500 for the actual charger itself? I've been told, yes, it is. We are going to go ahead with this if council decides to go ahead and purchase this electric vehicle to begin with. I'm not all that hot on electric. I mean, they look nice. It sounds all nice and fuzzy, but when you look at how they're made and how you dispose of the batteries once their usefulness has expired, they're really not all that green. So that's why I wanted to mention that regarding the charging and the support system for this. Thank you.
All right. Excuse me? There is no more cards. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Frampus, yeah, obviously.
Thank you, Mayor. Price difference. What's the price difference of gas truck that we would normally buy? I know we kind of buy a no-frills truck, kind of, and have them run around in that. Is that what you have a price difference for me? I mean, I looked at it's kind of a small SUV kind of vehicle for the building department. I would assume that some truck type vehicle would be better in some of the environments they go into, unfinished roads, and I know SUVs do also, but I mean, we have a price difference. I'm not, I don't know, seems like we're moving hot and heavy into the electric vehicles with ordering 2 other trucks and stuff, and I'm not all that ready to do that yet. So I want to, if we're going to do this, I think we need to set a limit until we can figure out, is there a cost savings and an advantage to the city? So, do you know of a price difference first and foremost?
No, we have not done a speculative cost-benefit analysis versus electricity versus the fuel. That's why we're purchasing one of the SUVs to compare that against one of the
future savings on just the initial cost on purchasing the vehicle.
Oh, we did the SUVs last year, 26,000.
So significant difference.
So.
Okay, I don't think I'm going to be supporting this. Thank you.
Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. I will also echo Ms. Young's comments in terms of I'm not a huge proponent of electric vehicles the way they stand now. The research behind the more so the environmental impacts from the batteries long term. The research that I've read so far has said we need to give it, at least another 5 to 10 years to be able to see what that long-term impact is on the materials, on all of the things it takes to put these things together, let alone maintain them. My question for Mr. Rohde relates to, you mentioned the other, I think you said 2 trucks that we're looking at potentially getting, but is that something we are in line for?
We are in the grant application process, correct?
Okay, so whether or not we move forward with this vehicle, we will still move forward with 2 vehicles through a grant if we secure the grant, correct? Okay, and do we have any plan in place to track sort of what Ms. Young was saying in terms of the mileage, the fuel, maintenance costs for that vehicle, whether it's this one or the ones we're hoping to get through the grant versus cars we already have in the fleet?
Correct. The charging, currently our fleet vehicles, we track the fuel per vehicle. And the electric vehicle, the charging stations come with tracking software as well. So it would track kilowatts versus gallons.
But do we track maintenance on those vehicles? Because I know when you and I
We track maintenance on every city vehicle.
Because the electric ones you'd said require that we then drain the battery to perform any maintenance on.
Yeah, we do two charging stations, one for City Hall, because that's where the vehicle will be located, and one for Public Works Yard, where the maintenance is done. You know, one for redundancy, and two, the information that we were given is if there's certain minor mechanical work that's needed on the vehicle, sometimes you have to drain the battery, decharge it in order to do the work on it, so you don't, you know, I guess electrocute yourself. I'm assuming that's the reason why.
That's good. We prefer they be safe.
So we need a charging station there to then recharge it and bring it up to.
When is the due date for the other vehicle grant, or when will we be submitting it?
Yeah, it's several months. We're in the cycle, and the cycle doesn't close. It's part of hardening with FEMA grant money, so it's cycle doesn't close for several months.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes, I was going to mention the same things that Andrea had talked about the charging stations. But I'm also inclined to agree with Mr. Frampus in not supporting electric vehicles. And the two vehicles that you talked about, Diana, are they also electric vehicles, or are they not?
Correct, they're electric
They
vehicles.
are electric vehicles. Is that a done deal?
We are in the grant application process. We are in the cycle for the grant.
Okay, so they have to be
Well, they're grants.
electric, right, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They have to, yes, that is, part of the grant is they are electric vehicles because they double as generators for our lift station during hurricanes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ditmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I was originally supportive of the idea of us having some electric vehicles, but the cost is a little bit of a bridge too far. Even if it's reduced from $18,000 to say even $15,000 difference, the cost to operate that per year, just on the fuel costs, we're probably looking at about $5,000 a year, if that. I don't know how much they would drive it, but the savings just from going with a gas vehicle, my guess will probably pay for itself, the difference in the savings for at least 3 years, and that's not including the cost to pay for the electric to do the charging. So I think the cost is right now is a little bit. We still have to safeguard the public funds here, and spend, and we have to weigh that to the environment. But to spend an extra 15 to whatever, it's 15,000 plus more, I think at the very minimum, is a little bit too much. So I can't support that. I'll support us, setting this up where we get a grant, we get a vehicle, put charging in, whatever, and we'll roll with it. And if the price starts to come down and it gets a little bit more closer, then I would support that wholeheartedly. But for now, I can't support this item.
Ms. Young?
Thank you, Mayor. Will the grant cover the entire cost of the two trucks, the entire purchase price? So and there is no grant for the charging stations?
No, it's included, yes.
Oh, it is included. All right, so then if we do get this grant, then we could monitor that as, we can use that as our test vehicle and then decide if we want to actually go out and purchase our own other electric vehicles from there based on their findings, which didn't cost the city because it came from grant money. I realize it's tax money, but it's not cities. All right, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that. Thank you.
Mr. McDowell?
Thank you, Mayor. I do think that it's great to have this conversation. I'm really open to have this conversation. I think it's unfortunate because we are doing a disservice without having some technical and some data and some information here. But I will tell you that in my sustainability studies that there is a cost-benefit analysis that does go through from cradle to grave on the whole process, and there is a higher cost on the front end, and that's typical with a lot of new technologies. Calculators you can get for $1 where you used to pay a lot more for them when they first came out. That's how it works. I do appreciate, and I'm not dismissing information that as far as the maintenance of it beyond that, or the technologies around the universal plugins and all that jazz. So I think there's some work to be done. I just think we're kind of doing a disservice because I support the grant. I think it's a great idea. That's a great entryway to pilot it and to understand it. But I think it's two issues around this car. Is the actual car itself or the vehicle of its purpose, and then the other one is what's fueling it. So I guess I would support that we put a hold on the B, but I would definitely support going forward with the grant. Thank you.
Mr. Ditmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I just make a motion that we deny the purchase of the 2023 Nissan Araya.
Ms. Young?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Ditmore and a second from Ms. Young. All in favor? Anybody? Oh, you just turn it on. Frampus, Mr. Frampus.
Thank you. Mr. Rhodey, I'm guessing this is going to follow up with a purchase of a gas SUV vehicle as we did last time.
Correct.
That's the avenue we're going to take here.
We need an additional vehicle in the building department, so we'll
And I
with the normal.
do agree with Mr. McDowell. I think the grant vehicles, if we get them, it's going to be the perfect opportunity to see how they work out, and if they work out, then move in that direction at a later date. Thank you.
Ms. Young?
No,
Your light's on?
Mine's on.
Oh, it's on here. Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. I know if this vehicle had been purchased, it would be for the building department. So those two trucks we are looking at potentially getting with the grant, where are they slotted to go? Which department?
So we would use them day to day where they would fit in the best, but ultimately the grant is for when we have hurricanes, so.
Okay, so that's why we still need the vehicle for building department. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? So we have a motion for Mr. Ditmore and a second from Ms. Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you just, all right, Mr. McDowell. No problem, that's close.
So, thank you, Mayor.
No problem.
I appreciate that. I just wanted clarification on the motion because I'm hearing different things. Where the motion is
Do not accept the purchase of the electric vehicle.
Period.
and not purchase a vehicle for them?
No, he's going to bring that back.
It'll be, the next purchase will be under my spending authority, so it won't come.
Okay. Oh, it'll be at your spending authority, so you'll be all right. Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure they get their vehicle. Okay.
We do too.
Thank you.
Why I-
Thank you.
So, again, we have a motion. I'll make sure no one turns the light on. A motion for Mr. Ditmore and a second for Ms. Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
I
Thank you.
have one more question on that.
Sure. You voted it, but go ahead.
Mr. Rhodey, do we know what other cities who are doing this, do we know what their results have been?
Yeah, I mean, the electric vehicles obviously larger upfront costs, but, you know, are cheaper to operate because you're not buying fuel, you're using electricity. And so we wanted to explore that option and see if that would be, you know, something that would help reduce our overall fleet maintenance cost. We have 144 vehicles in the fleet, so trying one seemed reasonable, but.
Wasn't a question. Right?
That was, yes, I asked if,
Other cities doing it, how are they making?
yes, I thought he was getting to that.
Yeah, I don't have a cost benefit of the dollars saved for other cities around us.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move over to the action agenda, and we have an item. Eric, you're presenting?
Yes, sir. The item in front of you, council, is to appoint Ms. Alexis McGuire to the Business Advisory Board for a term ending in November 2024. As you are aware, or as background, our Business Advisory Board is an 11-member board established by a previous resolution. Currently, there are 6 members on that board, so there are 5 vacant spots, which means that board has an exact number for a quorum. We've only had the one application. Ms. McGuire's business is outside of city limits. However, she is within the 1-mile established radius, as is prescribed by that previous resolution. So what we are asking is for council to make this appointment.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Frampus?
I'll make a motion, we appoint Melissa McGuire to the Business Advisory Board.
Ms. Foltz?
Second.
Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor, we have a motion by Mr. Frampus and a second by Ms. Foltz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that appointment's made. So we're going to move over to item 8B. And Mr. Mark Picarello, you got that item.
Good evening again.
Good evening, sir.
This is just our agenda item for our annual resurfacing of city streets. Where we're going to be piggybacking off the Polk County, which we have done for the previous years. Asphalt paving system has the bid for Polk County. You can see we're looking to do the entire Westbrook subdivision and a portion of Wingate Boulevard with this year. We have budgeted $514,800 for this year's budget, and the cost that we have to continue this year's resurfacing is $505,891.57. So it's my recommendation to City Council that we allow the city manager to award the contract to Asphalt Paving Systems and piggyback off the contract of Polk County for the amount of $505,891.51.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. I will make a motion to allow the city manager to award the contract to Asphalt Paving Service or Paving System as written in the staff memo, with the question as well.
Mr. Ditmore?
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Thank you. You said it was a piggyback contract with Polk County, so do we know when Polk County is expected to start their resurfacing to kind of put us in that queue?
No. Yeah, it's just a yearly contract that they have. What we try to do is get it in as early as possible because we are so small, as you could realize, dealing with a county contract. They're dealing with hundreds of miles of road. We're dealing with maybe a mile or two. So they allow us to piggyback off their contracts because we're just a filler. Mm-hmm. So when they go from one job to another job, they schedule us in. So that's a lot of how the piggyback works for us, for the city.
Right, I understand financially that's why it works for us. But we do expect it to be completed in this budget cycle.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Foltz?
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Carey. Since I'm the Westbrook Homeowners President, should I vote on this? Can I vote on this? Is it okay?
We knew you were going to be appointed, and so we spent the year planning to do your roads.
Because that doesn't look good, I'm just saying.
I'm just kidding. This has been part of a 5-year plan, and this is the part of the plan, but I'll let...
Assuming that you're not paid in your position as HOA president, then you can vote on it.
Okay, I'm just saying, I just got elected or appointed up here, and my whole entire property is getting paved. The optics just don't look good.
Good job.
I mean, they just...
You're reelected?
Just wins.
Okay, I just want to put it out there that, I had nothing to do with it.
The attorney blessed it. Mr. Frampus?
Well, then I'd...
Mark, how long we been dealing with Polk County's piggyback contract?
I believe this is the third year.
Have we done any research of any other counties on similar contracts? Maybe we get a better deal, or is that not something we look at? How's that process go?
It's for the type of application for the chip seal. Asphalt Paving Systems is probably the only one that offers that in the state.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. McDowell?
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any idea what the cost would be if we didn't bundle these? Do we have any idea?
We did that last year. We put it out for bid regular last year. Asphalt Paving Systems was the only company that put in a bid, and they were higher than what the piggyback was.
You know, I'm just, I mean, as far as good job well done, I guess the point I'm trying to figure out is that like $100,000 decision, you know, to pull it together.
Right, because
Substantial.
when you do it by yourself, when you stand alone, then there's other costs that are involved, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. We have a motion from Ms. Adams and a second from Mr. Ditmore. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes 7-0. So we'll move to item 8C.
Thank you.
It's gone now, so. And so we have an item now, first reading of a proposed ordinance establishing a moratorium on Live Local Act, and Mr. Rhodey will be presenting. At least that's what this says.
Okay. I thought I would be, so I'm going to talk about this. Essentially, what we're asking you to do here is to approve a moratorium on applications under the Live Local Act to the extent that there may be applications that would try to avail themselves to the provisions of the Live Local Act that can bypass a public hearing. The Live Local Act, as I've briefed you before, is a state preemption that preempts local governments from denying housing projects for multifamily housing as long as the project meets certain requirements for affordable housing. And the aspects of our code that it would preempt is zoning, height, density. And so we would not be able to bring any of those which would normally come before you in the form of rezoning to you. Instead, it has to be administratively improved. One of the things we've found as we're moving forward is that our code doesn't adequately address the issue of multi-use. As we briefed you before, with the Live Local Act does provide what I would call bedroom communities the opportunity to require mixed-use developments if you have less than 20% industrial or commercial properties in the city. We do qualify under that number because this is essentially a bedroom community. Other nearby cities may not, but we do. And so because of that, we can require multi-use. However, our code doesn't have a general multi-use provision that we could fall back on. There are multi-use provisions in certain zoning categories, but again, the zoning is preempted under the statute. So one of the strategies moving forward, we want to make sure that if we're going to require multi-use, that it's a legitimate multi-use and not something that somebody throws in 0.5% and says, well, see, we've got multi-use because 0.5% of the total floor area ratio is commercial and the other 99.5% is residential. So we would ask you to approve the moratorium to allow staff and I to work on a generally applicable ordinance throughout the city for multi-use so that we can ensure that we have legitimate multi-use rather than what I would call sham multi-use applications.
Thank you. Mr. Frampus?
Just really quick, I think the attorney did a great job summing this up, but just want to talk about the process a little bit. So tonight would be the action, if approved, would be first reading. If not approved, wouldn't. It would go to P&Z next week, and then the course of action will be back in front of the council for a public hearing on the 19th of December. So just logistically, just wanted to talk about the process out there so that everybody understands it.
2 readings, not 3.
Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it sounds like we're going to have a standalone multi-use ordinance put into the code. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what we're proposing. Ultimately, whether you want to adopt the moratorium and or the ordinance is up to you, of course. But we're trying to be proactive about...
When you say you want to do an ordinance on multi-use, that it's a standalone ordinance, and is it going to apply across all of our multi-use mentions in our statute?
I mean, there are not any number of ways we can draft an ordinance. What I would suggest is probably that we'll have a standalone multi-use ordinance to the extent that it doesn't conflict with a more specific ordinance that dealt with certain zoning categories. So we may want to treat certain overlay districts or certain zoning categories differently, and we could do so while still have an overarching multi-use ordinance that applies where there isn't currently any.
Because I'm pretty sure that our multi-use now is pretty consistent across the board, right?
We do have it in several of our districts that allow multi-use.
Which is pretty consistent.
Which is consistent, I believe. I'm looking at Christie, it's somewhere around 35%. So it's somewhere around that number, but it doesn't address industrial or commercial property because we don't allow that. So.
Right. It would. You said it's different for residential. Is that what you said, Christie?
You get that on the record.
Yeah, you may want to go to the microphone.
May need to go to the microphone.
We really have two zoning districts that have the mixed use. We have the integrated business, and that doesn't really have a percentage because it's sort of self-revealing. We have so many different properties off of Park Hill with so many different uses that, reaching.
That's all commercial and industrial, is that?
And residential.
And residential.
And institutional, and anything you can think of in the Park Hill area. It's everything. So that one doesn't have it. But the Gateway Interchange is the zoning district that I was describing, that you have 35% of non-residential uses. So it could be commercial, it could be industrial, it could be institutional. And then up to 65% maximum would be the residential, which in the Gateway Interchange is strictly multifamily.
And just by coincidence, those numbers are exactly consistent with the Live Local Act provisions, which require 65% housing.
Now, I attended the meeting at the Marriott the other day, and I asked the question about multi-use, and they said that it's not mixed use, mixed use, and they said that it's not required from them. I'm guessing that's bad information?
That wasn't the city's meeting. That was the developers meeting.
If they are seeking to bypass the public hearing and avail themselves of that privilege, then it would be required to meet the conditions of the Live Local Act, which do allow us to require multi-use, or mixed use, excuse me. Now you got me saying it. Or maybe I got you saying it, I don't know.
So we received a letter from an attorney today, and what is our liability putting a moratorium against a state law? Where does that fall?
The letter that you got was from one of the attorneys that frequently represents developers, and I would suggest that she's doing her job by trying to.
I agree with that. I'm just brought up the question,
Yeah.
Is there a liability for us to put a moratorium against a state law?
No, I don't believe so, and I wouldn't have brought this if it had any significant liability attached to it. The state law does allow us to do a moratorium for a specific amount of time, up to 6 months, for the purpose of drafting a generally applicable ordinance. So, and she knows that's the law, and I don't agree with the interpretation that we can't have an ordinance that helps to implement a state law as long as we're not trying to override the preemption, which we will not.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Ditmore?
Thank you, Mayor. So just going to do some council reports, but I'll just mention on this since we're on this topic. Two things I want to caution. I don't think we should try to drag this out for as long as possible. I think we should probably do this in a, I don't want to say expedited manner, but in a manner that we get it done in a reasonable time period. I want to say we're waiting 180 days. If it's something you can bring to us and sometime in January, 1st of February, it'll be great, whatever. Because I don't want them to have anything to where they can say, well, you're just trying to delay this, and you delay tactics. I think we should move along in a normal, orderly fashion as we would to look at this. And also, we need to be, I'm assuming these moratoriums, I believe, are being done through other cities throughout the state, if I recall correct?
There are other cities that have done moratoriums.
So they're actually, and during the conversation at the Marriott, I did ask the developer if any of their projects are actually involved with in moratoriums. He said none of ours are, but they gave me the impression that they were aware of that that was actually going on. So, and my recollection on the mixed use conversation was they showed a drawing and showed a small piece and said, well, if we have to have mixed use, this is what it would be, but we don't think we need to have it. But they put it on their drawing. It was this little small, looked like it was very, they didn't have a percentage on it, but I don't think it would meet the criteria that we're probably going to be looking for. Also, too, I did speak tonight at the county regarding the Live Local Act. This particular, they were looking to seek out a bond, support for a bond for $16 million, this particular project that Ms. Rosenka was there. I did see her there tonight. And I was just notified recently here that by the community that attended there, that failed, the bond measure failed by a 3-2 vote at the county commission tonight. So
you confirmed that?
I've multiple put, yeah. Yeah, so we're and again, a couple of the homeowners association presidents were out there present, so I believe that their information is probably correct. Because I actually had a breakdown as to who voted for it and who voted against it. So it appears that that's the case at this particular time. But I just think we should move in a kind of I don't want to drag it out, but we should probably move in a fashion. And also, at some point, we may have to look at the constitutional issues of this whole issue later down the road if League of Cities. I hope the League of Cities is going to address this at some point, and I think it'll be a joint. One of my conversations with one of the commissioners was, that the League of Cities probably wouldn't be supportive of one community. I don't think that the League of Cities is going to isolate this in one community. This is the situation that affects the entire state. And one of the things that I did bring up tonight when I did speak was what I saw was a systematic eradication of our commercial and industrial zoning that we have in this community. There are no caps, and Mr. Carey can correct me if I'm wrong when I say there are no caps on their ability to come into this community, and we now have 3 projects or 3 locations all in the Minton corridor where these developers, and I don't believe any of them are duplicate, I think they're all separate developers. There are no caps. There's nothing to keep them from coming in and actually removing building these multifamily projects on our commercially zoned, which then removes our future economic development value of those properties. There will be no businesses there. There will be no jobs created, so forth and so on. I did bring that up at the county tonight when I did speak, and I think that is a serious issue that we need to be concerned about to protect the community and as we build out in the development going forward. So, thank you.
Mr. McDowell?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to echo the fact that it is important that we have one project in front of us today that we're kind of touching on, but the reality is that this could be several other initiatives going on. So I would highly recommend that we stay with a 6-month and expedite in a timely fashion, as we have said. Know that we're doing that, but I'd rather err on the side of giving us adequate time to do this. That's all that I was.
Is that a motion?
Well, we can make that a motion. I can support this recommendation, yes. If you want me to read it, I can. I make a motion to approve the reading of ordinance number 2023-30, establishing a moratorium on processing of any development permit applications under the Live Local Act, Chapter 2023-17, for a period of 6 months or until a regulatory ordinance has been duly considered and acted upon by City Council, whichever time is shorter.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
I will second with a comment and a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Rohde, this applies just to projects that would fall under the Live Local Act, not all development, correct?
Correct.
I thought so, but just wanted to be clear and have that on the record. The second was in regards to Mr. Ditmore's comment. I know the mayor and I recently attended the League of Cities legislative conference. They reviewed the things that were advocated for or against from last session. They are aware the challenges that cities are currently facing with the Live Local Act. They continue to have it as a legislative priority, that their advocacy committees will continue to advocate for making changes to the law the way it is written. But we ultimately have to wait to see, what their success is. But I encourage people, if this is something that concerns you, get involved in the process, call your legislatures, be involved. They will be continuing to work on that advocacy for this upcoming session. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see any more lights, so we'll go ahead and vote. So we have a motion on the floor by Mr. McDowell and a second by Deputy Mayor Adams.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance, so it needs to be read by full title.
Okay.
This is ordinance number 2023-30, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, relating to Live Local Act development permit applications, adopting findings of fact, providing definitions, imposing a temporary moratorium on the processing of any development permit applications under the Live Local Act, Chapter 23-17, Laws of Florida, in order to determine criteria for mixed-use development standards, providing for penalty, severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, non-codification, and an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we have a motion from, excuse me?
Oh, yeah.
Comment?
No.
Okay, thank you. Motion from Mr. McDowell, second from Ms. Adams. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. So we'll move to item 8D, which is Ms. Jennifer Curran's presenting that.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
So our city attorney, Mr. John Carey, was appointed as the City of West Melbourne City Attorney on November 29, 2022. As required by his employment agreement, the City Council is tasked with evaluating his performance each year. Evaluation responses were received from each council member and compiled into a summary document that is included with your staff report. Mr. Carey's overall one-year score average was a 3.13 out of 5. Which generally exceeds or meets performance standards. A motion to accept the summary document is requested. Thereafter, the City Council may discuss Mr. Carey's performance and a salary increase if desired. And if desired, I have included a history and a salary survey for your review.
Okay, I don't have any lights on, so is there any discussion on the attorney's appraisal? All right, so I need a motion to approve the reading of it or accept it.
Accept the summary report, please.
If I could get that. Mr. McDowell?
I make a motion to accept the summary report as written.
Mr. Frampus?
Second.
So I have a motion from Mr. McDowell, or an acceptance from Mr. McDowell, and a second from Mr. Frampus. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. And I think now you're going to talk to us about the salary portion.
If you're interested in a salary increase, I have included a salary survey. I actually reached out to about 25 different municipalities, received several responses. 8 of them actually had a employed attorney, otherwise they were contracted out. So I have included 8 responses. An average annual salary of $181,342.75 is noted on attachment 3. Melbourne, New Smyrna, Palm Bay, Port Orange, Sebastian, Stewart, Titusville, Vero Beach, and of course West Melbourne have staff attorneys. I also included a historical salary of Mr. Richardson's 5 years. Through 2017 through 2021, an average annual increase of about 6.28%. I've included the salary range for this position with the minimum of $139,018 and a maximum of $215,479. Mr. Carey's 6-month review score was a 3.13 and his 1 year was a 3.13. And then just a couple different options down below. Whether you wanted to provide increase as the average annual increase like Mr. Richardson's, or the CPI increase, or the average annual increase for general employees. So I just gave some options for you to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Detmore.
I'm just looking at the CPI increase, and that was 6.4%. Is that was for last, this is
That was for January. That was the increase the city council members received.
And what do we do for general employees across the board?
7.75%.
7.75%?
Increases.
I see, okay.
Want to hear us all talk?
Yeah, I'll let everybody's got to say. All right, go ahead, I'm done.
Mr. Frampus?
I'm looking at the average annual percentage increases, and I think 2021 was I know we all can attest that that was an extraordinary year for Mr. Morgan and Mr. Richardson, and I really believe that number should be stricken from the thing. I averaged the other three, or the four up, and it came out to 5.465. And their reviews came out in high fours or five. So I think we really need to consider that when we consider the salary range we're going to talk about for an increase as well. Thank you.
Ms. Volz?
Yeah, I don't really have a history with Mr. Carey at all, so I really can't say anything. However, if his 6-month review was 3.3, but his 1-year review was 3.13, I don't know what happened there, but maybe there's just a little bit of work to be done by Mr. Carey. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have a history with him at all, so I just saw that to be odd. That's all.
Mr. Ditmore? Were you finished? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm finished.
Thank you. You're light.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Ms. Volz. I think there's always I've done evaluations on employees for over 20 years, and I'm sure others have her as well. There's always room for improvement, and I'd like to see Mr. Carey grow with this organization and work to get those numbers up. I don't believe that we should pay based on the CPI anything less, obviously, but the 6.4% I think would be a minimum. At the very minimum, we shouldn't pay any less than what the what inflation's actually cost us, as far as that goes. So I'm going to make a motion that we do the CPI increase, 6.4% as the CPI. It's not really reflective of a performance increase. It's more of a cost of living increase at this time. So,
Mr. McDowell?
I'll second that.
Ms. Young?
I just wanted to make a comment that what we are seeing for history, those raises that we gave in the past, those were based on straight fives, and those were strong scores year over year. I have to agree with Mr. Frampus. I would throw out the high score and take the average remaining and think more seriously about that.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Ditmore and a second from Mr. McDowell. Any further discussion on this topic? Seeing none, I guess we can, it's not an ordinance, but we'll go ahead and vote it in. And so all in favor of accepting, I guess we have accepted the review, but 6.4 increase to the salary, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So we have 2 opposed,
Nay.
and they are Ms. Young
Yes.
and Mr. Frampus.
Yes.
All right, so the motion passes at 6.4%.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So next up, I think we have city council reports. And we'll start with Mr. Frampus.
Thank you, Mayor. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I think it's our first meeting since Thanksgiving. So I know my wife and I did. November 30th, I attended a meeting at I mentioned earlier at the Marriott for the venue, the new venue they're doing. And December 1st, had a wonderful time at the West Melbourne tree lighting. I think it went over very well this year, and our new mayor did a great job on talking to the crowd, and it was very well attended. So I was happy to see that. So that's all. I do have one more question. For the city manager, it's the DBA numbers that they talked about earlier, the difference from the county as opposed to the cities. I didn't really get the differences that he was referring to. They seemed pretty similar when he mentioned it. But is that something that warrants review, or do we want to revisit that? I know we kind of did it just several years ago, and I didn't know if we wanted to revisit that and look at that again.
So the majority of this council just did that less than a year and a half ago. The ordinance was very old. We took a look at it as a council, again, before my time, but as a council, took a look at it and updated that ordinance. So if it's...
We did base it off of some of the county if they had at that time, and I don't know, if some of the cities are making adjustments and changing things, maybe we need to look at it as, also.
Yeah, I think that's up to the council if they want to take a look at that ordinance again. I will say when that was presented, there were a multitude of communities compared, and the council did kind of pick an average at that time. But if things have changed, that's up to the council if they want to take a look at that ordinance.
Is there any way you can just get back to us and see if there's a significant difference, and then we can make a decision?
Yeah, we'll update the numbers from the staff memo of the communities that you guys looked at when you updated it. And if there's changes, that'll be for you guys to take a look at.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, sir. Mr. Ditmore.
Thank you, Mayor. I will support that what Mr. Frampus is saying. And anything that we can do to reduce to abate the noise issue that we're having with the tractor trailers and especially the trailers and the reefers that are running over in that particular neighborhood over there, that we can help that community, that would be great. But also, I think it's something we probably need to address. Okay, just moving on. We talked a little bit about the developer meeting. Attended that as well. Also, the commission meeting tonight as well. Worked on that particular issue for the last probably 7 or 8 days. And I will tell you, it's been every time the phone rang, it was a different answer or something different. It was very a roller coaster ride. Is trying to learn about as much as I can about the Live Local Act. There is some information out. I did forward over something from the Florida Housing Coalition. I would recommend everyone take a look at that. And it's a nice big PowerPoint presentation with a accompanying video for that. And it's something that'll help, learn as well. I know we were sent something by staff as well, but and learn as much as we can about this in this process as we go forward. And I think that'll be helpful. Other than that, Thanksgiving was great. And we'll see everybody, I guess, again before Christmas. We have another meeting. So,
You made a comment about something passed tonight by the county. Can you go into a little bit of detail on that?
Well, there was a bond effort. For the developer was asking the county to approve a $16 million bond. Basically would provide them the financing for the project they wanted to do. And that failed, from the information I received, multiple sources now, failed 3-2. And 2 commissioners that passed it were that voted to pass it were Commissioner Steele and Commissioner Pritchett. And Feltner, Tobiah, and Goodson voted voted no. And so that measure failed. That means they'll have to go out and obtain private financing for anything, but obviously they have to deal with this issue as well. So, and
They get to bring it back up to the county? They can't keep going back on?
I don't think so. This issue failed. If they go to a different location, I imagine they could bring it back and, at that point or whatever. I did make a point, one of the points I did make when I spoke tonight was that they made no effort, zero effort to place this in one of our multifamily zoned locations. I mean, there was no interest for whatever reason. And I don't know if, I don't know, Mr. Carey might be able to speak on this. Is Live Local, is it portable for them to take some of the provisions, some of the benefits of Live Local, the outside of the rezoning or using commercial or industrial? Can they use that for any, is it beneficial for them to use Live Local in a current multifamily location? Is there any benefit for them?
So there are some different provisions in the overarching chapter of state law that would allow them some subsidies and other options if they want to do affordable housing. But the Live Local specifically is a reference to the ability for them to be able to bypass the public hearing as well as preempting the zoning height and density restrictions.
The preemption of the zoning is something that kind of zeroed in on and basically really just removing the available commercial zoning that we have. I mean, we just effectively they could actually come in and cherry pick out the best places that we have for commercial development and make this multifamily, and we have no say in that whatsoever. So that's really a problem, I think. I think it's a constitutional issue, to my opinion, but I'm not a lawyer. But I think it was something that it'll be looked at. This is going to be challenged, I would say. Not just us, but I say challenged statewide, I think. We'll be seeing more of it. Certainly not. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Young?
Thank you, and thank you, John, for going out there to speak tonight. Thank you very, very much. Apparently, you were very effective. So, and I'm sure the others that spoke as well were. So, thank you. So it's very early in the month yet, so I haven't had a lot of other meetings to come back to report on. We did have the transportation disadvantaged, which is the paratransit meeting. We had that yesterday, so we now have a full board. Some of the people had aged off, and so we have new people on. That's about the only thing I have to report on that. And that's my report. Other than, yes, I went to the tree lighting as well, and I agree it was a great event. So thank you.
Mr. McDowell.
Thank you, Mayor. And I as well attended the Live Local forum by the developer over at the courtyard. And I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by how civil everybody was in the room. They were very, they asked great questions. And I thought it was a good exchange. I think the commissioner, who I guess did vote against doing it, was there, who represents this, I believe, represents this area, or is it 5? Is it? Okay, great. The current district, yeah. So I think that all went extremely well, and I appreciate my colleagues that were also there as well. I attended the Christmas tree lighting, short of the lighting. Appreciate the understanding. I had another, I was able to get into the picture, so that was helpful. But I do want to mention that I did go to Orlando to attend the Federal Action Strike Team, which is a subgroup of the League. And there were 3 items that I think are worth mentioning that were on the radar. And the first one was the broadband, which really it doesn't really affect us because we pretty much have that covered here. So that's really not so much as of a concern. But the other items that were concerning was the PFAS and measuring that for the EAP. And I did follow up with the city manager, and he reassured me we measured the water. Am I getting that correctly? We did measure, and everything was fine in the PFAS. But I guess that's not true in a lot of different places within Florida. It's problematic as well as across the country. And if you want to know more about it, I won't even say what it stands for because I can't pronounce it. But it's PFAS. And water quality? It's basically polyfluoral alkalides, I think, something that substances, and it's just another measurement of, it's, if I understand it correctly, you think of it, it's substances that are made and things that are flame retardant. Is that correct? Okay. And so it gets into the whole system, and it's a, you know, it's on the radar nationally, but I wasn't that familiar with it here locally, but we have some reassurance that that's not a problem for us. Things like beachfront, we didn't even have any concern by that. But the third item was also on the National Flood Insurance Program, which was a hot issue because that's kind of driven by FEMA, and that as well as experiencing the same kind of increases that, at least I'm told, I personally have not, although now I may be, I personally have not been affected by a higher premium for flood insurance, but I hear others have been. So I do think that is on a radar at a federal level. And that's pretty much all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Volz?
I'm the last one?
No, I am.
Oh, you are? Okay. I really don't have anything other than it was a great tree lighting ceremony. It was really nice. It's the first one that, even though I've lived here for all these years, first one that I went to, and it was very nice. So I appreciate all the work that the staff put into it because they sure did a great job. That was it.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
All right, I will go quickly through a couple things. I know a couple of us attended the Stomp Out Bullying from the police department to the school, so the kids were really excited. It was a good turnout for that. We had another SALT program, another good turnout. I fear eventually that program is going to get so well attended by seniors in our community, we're going to need to find another location potentially, but another good presentation, Chief. I attended an event for Neighbor Up Brevard. They are seeking volunteers just to get involved in their mission and supporting the different kids that they serve. So if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, they're a good one to connect with. We had the final evening for the police academy. So I know a bunch of the graduates from the Citizens Police Academy will be coming to our next meeting. But we wrapped that up, and that was a really good presentation from our police department. There was the Flutie 5K and the ping pong drop this past Saturday at the Field of Dreams for Promise and Brevard. They had a really good turnout, especially for their first 5K. They weren't really sure, but actually it was my understanding a Promise resident actually won the main ping pong drop.
True.
Sorry, Mr. Rhodey, you didn't win. But it was really great. They got a lot of support from the Doug Flutie Foundation, and they're looking to continue that in years moving forward. The final thing is focused on the Florida League of Cities. They held their legislative conference, a bunch of different things in terms of advocacy on behalf of the city. Each city gets a representative, so I was asked to step up for West Melbourne, so I'll be serving on their additional state advocacy team. But they also are running for, I know a couple of us serve on different policy committees. The Municipal Administrative Committee that I serve on had decided on their top policy priorities that fall within our realm for this upcoming session. So I just wanted to loop everyone in that for this year, those areas are going to be the recruitment and retention of public safety employees. I think primarily first responders, things like that. Short-term rentals continues to be on that list, and then the third one being cybersecurity. So just things to keep in mind. And then they've got, I know I brought it up probably about a year ago this time, but they have a program called Local Voices United. It's their way of getting residents just involved in the advocacy process, sharing how different bills, if they get passed into law, could affect residents and our city as a whole. So they are looking, right now, before session starts, to really plug in with HOAs, communities, individual residents. If you have time and want to make calls, send emails, get informed on what's coming forward for the legislative session. They're looking for people to share their perspective from every city in Florida, and that includes West Melbourne. So I know information for that as far as signing up and getting plugged in is on their website, but I think that's something we should encourage our residents, especially those that we've seen get more involved in the process, those concerned about things like Live Local. It's just a great way to plug residents in. So I wanted to share that with everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. So I just have just a few comments. I did also attend the Florida League of Cities Conference, and I'll make a mention of that in a minute. Did attend the Bully Stomp Out. That was kind of a nice walk that we had, and there was a lot of kids from the school that were involved with doing that, and they're kind of one of the best ways for other kids to see, to have influence on other kids. If your friends are saying don't do it, I think it might mean more than an adult telling them not to do something. So, that was kind of a nice venture that they had there. I did get asked by Mayor Blake, who's a COCO mayor, but he's also the second vice president of the Florida League of Cities, and he talked to me a little bit about maybe looking at a position as a director on the Florida League of Cities board. And so I talked to Mayor Rosa, or tried calling Mayor Rosa today, but he was in Nassau getting off the boat. And I wanted to ask him, because I know he did that this last year, and I wanted to ask him if he thought it was a benefit to the city. Because I do think one thing we need to consider when we get involved in all these things is how does it benefit the city? And it's not clear to me yet how that's beneficial, but I do think there's an annual charge to it. So, and I want to look more into that and understand, how these things benefit the city. So, something I'll be looking into. Obviously, I attended the tree lighting, and that was fantastic. So well attended. So I want to make sure whoever is involved in touching that event, that's just tremendous. And I talked to a lot of residents that were out in the public forum there, and they just love that thing and thought it's just so well put on. So, kudos to everybody involved, and let's just keep doing that because it really works and brings a great crowd out. I also got involved in the Promise and Brevard Ping Pong Palooza, I think is the way they pronounce that. I got to go up in the fire truck ladder and drop all the ping pong balls out. And it was a Promise resident that won, and that just was fantastic. And the young man was so excited. It was just great, and I think his mother was there as well, and maybe she was looking to get a hold of the check. Wasn't quite sure how that was going to work. But got to go over, tell him congratulations, shake his hand, and he was just, all the other residents there were so excited for him. So it was just nice to see. It was really nice the way that came out. And I would just remind the council, we do have a Space Coast League of Cities dinner next Tuesday evening, I think it is, or Monday evening. And so it's also the Christmas event. So if you're going to attend one of those, that's kind of the ones that a lot of people like to attend because it's related to with the Christmas event. So that's all that I had. So any questions or comments for the city manager or anything you needed to say? City manager.
Oh, motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was going to, Mr. McDowell, you have your light on now?
Right, I just was going to ask real quick. I failed. I was going to bring this up during my.
All right.
And it's more of a procedural question of how do we approach when we get the communication coming from outside the city residents, that we get emails about things that really don't pertain to the city, for one, or that are really beyond our realm of responsibility. And what I'm saying specifically is regarding the Middle East and some of the sensitivity around that. So we get an inordinate amount of, and I'm not dismissing that by any stretch. I think it's very important. This is real, really happening out there. But I just want to go about it, and I need some professional guidance, I guess, on how we're dealing or how we address that as a city, or because these things keep coming towards us, and I keep keeping them out there and going, delete or not delete.
I think most of them you can unsubscribe at the bottom of the emails. Yeah.
No, these are directly sent to us from either the clerk or. This is not email. These are from city. These are officially public records, and I can be corrected on that, but they're public records that are being forwarded to all of us.
City manager.
Yep. You know, we're happy to take a look at that, but right now our current policy is if somebody emails the city council group requesting that the city council get a notification, barring that it has pornography or inappropriate content, we forward that to the council, and that's just a policy. It's been the policy everywhere that I've been. And you can choose to read it, you can choose to comment, or you can choose to file it. That's up to you. But as long as they follow the correct procedure and don't have anything that's inappropriate, we forward it to the council.
And if it were, I'm sure that there would be some legal intervention that we
You don't know.
don't respond,
Yes,
McDowell.
you don't know how many times if you just sent a small amount of money overseas, you would get millions in return that we do not forward those emails.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So we do have a process to filter them, but it's only to filter them for inappropriate content or a spam filter. If it's something that doesn't meet that criteria, we push it along to the council for your consideration.
So for the record, for those that are sending them, we are receiving them, and it's our discretion.
Yeah. I generally forward things back to the city attorney or back to the city manager to get, if I think it needs a response. And I'll tell them, you know, are you guys going to respond to this, rather than having them get 7 emails from 7 different council members that have 7 different opinions. So, all right. Mr. Carey, any comments?
No, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to serve with you.
All right. Thank you for serving as part of the team. Yes, sir? Yeah, I was going to say, I was just going to remind the council, we have pictures as a group, not as a single, at the end of this meeting, and we are at that end. So we're adjourned. Thank you.